next presentation is how the internet routed around cable damage in the Baltic Sea by Alistair Strachan. Yep. Alistair is Community Development Officer at RIPE NCC and traveled from Amsterdam to join us today. This is Alistair's third time presenting analog. His first time analog was called Knocks in the RIPE community at Analog 86 in Hollywood in year 2022. Welcome back to Analog, Alistair. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Hey, thank you so much. It's great to be back. Thank you. You're way too kind. You haven't seen me present yet. Hi, everyone. Firstly, I apologize to the tech team. I'm a bit of a wanderer, so you might have to keep that camera on me. But good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alistair Strachan. I work at the RIPE NCC as one of the community development officers. Today, I'm here to talk about something that is a little out of my normal remit. We're going to be talking about cable damage that occurred towards the end of last year and how the internet routed. That's going to annoy me all presentation, but routed around this damage that took place. So before I kick into kind of the real crux of the presentation, I'm going to just give a quick shout out to RIPE Labs. The reason I bring this up, this is where we as the RIPE NCC and the RIPE community publish a whole host of different information. We post articles, we have a podcast, and the reason I bring this up is when my colleague Emil first made this research into these cable damage, the traction that these got on RIPE Labs was massive, which is why this has now become this presentation. Now, I've mentioned my colleague Emil. The reason I'm throwing this slide up is because Emil is one of the data scientists at the RIPE NCC. And if you hate this presentation, it's all his fault. If you love it, it's mine. I'll take all the credit if you like it. But yeah, Emil is doing a lot of cool things with RIPE Atlas data and other data information that we have at the NCC. So the cable damage that we're looking at today, we're really looking, admittedly, it was towards the end of last year, but we saw, this slide just gives an overview of the timeline that we're looking at. So between November and February 24-25, there was a number of cable outages in the Baltic Sea. So the BSC East-West, we saw the C-LION1 and the LVRTC. And this presentation really goes through what we saw as the RIPE NCC when this cable damage happened. So how the internet actually routed around it, where it went and how it did this. Now, whenever we see any cable damage, it's instantly a hot topic on a lot of media outlets. Is it warfare? Is it Russia? It's a lot. And we as the NCC really want to remain this neutral source of information. We want to be able to provide interesting data as opposed to clickbait headlines that it's the next war. So with this damage in particular, originally it was intentional. It turns out, and this is actually just a screenshot from one of the many global marine traffic websites. It was actually caused by a ship that had left a port in Russia and dragged anchor. So it dragged anchor through 3 of these cables, and we saw failures as the ship crossed over this. Now, the ship in question was taken by Finnish authorities, escorted into custody. There was a whole deep dive into it, and it was considered an accidental damage. So where do we get the data that we use for things like this? I'm gonna guess, I mean, I can't see anyone, but I'm guessing at least some people here have heard of RIPE Atlas. RIPE Atlas is the RIPE NCC's global network of measurement devices. Now, fun fact, well, not that fun, but interesting fact about myself. My very first job at the RIPE NCC was actually shipping version 1 probes when we had 100 of them online. So I used to spend all day with a barcode scanner putting probes into packages. Now, thankfully, we've gone a little further on from that now. We're actually looking at around over 13,000 probes online now, and we have over 800 anchors. And what these are doing are running constant measurements, daily measurements, both user-defined and built-in. And what this gives us at the RIPE NCC is a whole host of information and data that we can use to do cool stuff like this. So I mentioned the Atlas probes. Atlas probes are small, little, both actually VM and little devices that run a number of different measurements. Atlas anchors are like our supersized probes, and they support ping, they support traceroute, DNS, and HTTPS measurements. Now, what's cool about the anchors, not only are they doing these measurements, they also run continuous measurements to each anchor. So we have every 4 minutes, there's ping measurements going across to all the anchors, and it creates this big mesh of measurements. And that allows us to observe latency changes and packet loss between these anchors. And this is what we've done when we've looked at this cable damage. So first up, we're going to look at the BCS East-West and the C-LION, the C-LION1. This is the BCS is Sweden, Lithuania, and the C-LION1 is Germany and Finland. And we looked at the results of these anchor meshes between these countries around the time of the event. So with the countries listed, as you can see, we've got anchors in all of them. I'm not going to try and pronounce the city names, apart from Helsinki and Rostock. The other two I will definitely mispronounce. But we have these anchors, and we use this to really do an in-depth look as to what happened. So first up, now on this slide, this is viewing paths between anchors in Sweden and Lithuania, and this is 12 hours before and 12 hours after the event. Now, with this, we basically subtract the minimum latency for a path during our observation period, and there we can see where these jumps are coming and how it's looking. Now, with this, so this is the line around 8 a.m. when the cable damage occurred. What we saw using the Atlas anchor mesh was a latency increase of about 10 to 20 milliseconds across a lot of the anchors that we have. This slide is the same cable, but looking between Germany and Finland, again, 12 hours before and after. And here again, we see this small latency increase, and in this instance was around 5 milliseconds around that same time. Now, this is expected. The latency increase, the traffic's routing around, is finding the way to go around this damage. What was very cool, or what was interesting, was the packet loss, or lack of packet loss. We saw a few spikes, but as a whole, there wasn't a huge increase in packet losses. That was a good cheer for that line. There was no real increase in packet loss. Now, what this basically means is the internet's doing what it should do. It's routing round and it's working. Similar situation we saw with the C-LION1 cable. This is passed between Germany and Finland. Again, 12 hours before and after. We saw, again, this small increase in latency, 5 milliseconds. Well, not small in your world, but small in general. And again, no significant increase in packet loss. So again, here we see 2 a.m. UTC. We see this jump. There were a few spikes, but as a whole, there was no massive increase in packet loss. Now, with the C-LION1, actually, there was a bit of luck. There was a repair ship in the vicinity when this damage took place. So the C-LION cable was actually repaired relatively quickly. The cable repair ship actually reported the damage fixed and left the area around 28th of November. And we see this, everything returning to normal. Now, there is that one random jump. We're not actually too sure what caused that. This kind of highlights the complexities of trying to figure out what's happening. But as a whole, we saw things, once repaired, return to normal. Now, the next slide is looking, it's kind of one of the issues of having cool measurement devices and everything running. At the beginning of this year, or April this year, there was a large power outage across Spain and Portugal. And one of the problems with measurement networks is if there's no power, they don't measure anything. So this is just a big screen of mess that tells us nothing. And this was really just to highlight, like, just because we've got it, it doesn't always mean it's going to work if the issue in question is taking out the infrastructure that's measuring. So this is just going to quickly sum up what we've seen here. So as a whole, we saw relatively minor but visible shift in latency of around 10 to 20 milliseconds. The cool thing is there was no concurrent increase in packets. Now what does that mean? We are great. End of presentation. The internet works. Have a good day. We wanted to use, again, mentioned in RIPE Atlas, we do these pings, we do all these other things. What we can do and what Emil did in this instance was we wanted to have a bit more of a meaty look as to what was happening. So we've done the initial analysis. We wanted to follow up using traceroute data. And the aim of this was to examine the paths actually that changed while the end-to-end connectivity was maintained. Now, upon doing this, we saw there were kind of 3 levels of resilience that were coming up. So we had inter-domain rerouting, and this is traffic that's rerouted through alternative protocols, ASs, IXPs. I really wish we'd stop using so many acronyms. eBGP routing protocol. We also saw intra-domain rerouting. So this is routing within the networks themselves. So using different paths, IBG, you can read those ones. And finally, we saw circuit-level rerouting. Now, this is routing along, alternate circuit-level connections between routers, but using that same IP address. So there are different levels of resilience that need to be taken into account when planning. One thing it's important to say is resilience is not guaranteed. I'm going to mention a few different slides that technically aren't anywhere near the Baltic, but in 2024, there was actually a submarine landslide off the Ivory Coast, and it damaged a whole host of cables. The ACE cable, Main 1, SAT3, and the West Africa cable system were all damaged and all damaged. With this, as you can see, the latency shift was there, but also packet loss. This is looking at paths between anchors in the UK and South Africa. And we saw this, again, the latency goes up, but in this instance, we saw a whole lot of packets being dropped. So this would indicate that the resilience is not there. And as I say, this is mainly due to the location and the fact that it took out so many of the cables. A lot of the times resilience will be, oh, we've got it on the cable next door, things like that. So it's always important to take that into account. This is a really mess of a slide. We also had a similar incident this year, actually a few months ago, in the Red Sea. There's no report on the actual cause of this. But we saw, again, 4 of the cables, the Falcon, the CME-WE, the IME-WE, and the Europe-India Gateway. We saw a similar situation where they were damaged and, again, latency shift with packet loss. With this one, this is actually looking between France and India, and we saw a latency increase of this of 100 milliseconds. So this was quite a big jump, and also an increase in that packet loss again. Now, you may look at this and think that, that doesn't look too bad on the packet loss. Because of the increase, the y-axis was adjusted. This actually shows up to 50% increase in packet loss, which is quite a huge number. And that continued over the next 24 hours. We saw this same issue cropping up. Now, in conclusion of this, this is really mentioning, as I say, the focus on the Baltic Sea. The internet worked. We're great. The end. The internet routed around the damage. There was sufficient levels of resilience. There was sufficient levels of redundancy, both between networks and within networks. So in this instance, sweet. As we've seen, resilience is not guaranteed, and sometimes there is things that completely wipe out everything, and it's unavoidable. If the whole country's power goes out, I think packet loss is probably one of the least important things on the people running the country's mind at the time. It's important for us as the RIPE NCC that we continue to monitor, continue to measure, and continue to understand what is happening when events like this take place. So I'm coming back now, and this is now my plead to you all. The RIPE NCC is this neutral source of internet measurement data. In order for us to continue with this, we need to gain visibility using vantage points. Coverage is really the key here. Not just geographical coverage, but also the AS numbers, things like that. We're always actively seeking hosts to get probes and anchors in certain locations. I'm going to go through a few different slides here that show the coverage that we have. North America, we're kind of good. We have 125 anchors online, same in the GB. It makes me sad that because of Brexit, GB is no longer listed in Europe here. Canada also has, we have 18 anchors online. Mexico, we're not doing quite as well, so if anyone here has presence in any of the countries that we see over the next few slides, don't come find me. I'll tell you who to go and find, the actual people, the actual clever people. Latin America, we see a lot more orange on this, so we're always looking again for hosts of probes, anchors, all of these things within all of these different countries. The next few slides, even though the NCC is the Europe, Middle East and Central Asia RAR, the service of Atlas is worldwide, and we want to ensure that. So we have coverage throughout Europe. Europe really has a lot. There's a few countries in here. The one surprise for me on this one is Norway. I kind of expected Norway to be right up there as well. But yeah, so again, this isn't a sales pitch, I promise. But we are always looking for anchor hosts, probe hosts, all of that. Middle East, similar situation. We have quite a big gap here, mainly due to policies and things that influence the ability to put a device that measures all your internet traffic on a network. Central Asia, again, something that we're working on, or Central and yeah. And then APNIC region, it's all the same. We're always looking. If anyone reads this slide, please don't tell my comms department that I didn't change the email to mine and left Emil's on there. But in practice, this presentation took 23 minutes, so I may have talked a bit too quick as I make it 20 minutes. But with that, I'll open to any questions and comments that you might have. And if not, I'll say thank you. Oh, I see someone. Oh, thanks.
Adair Thaxton, Internet 2. Given the culprit of the outage that you were discussing, have you considered renaming the RIPE anchors to be something less prophetic?
I mean, that's a good point. I'll certainly give that feedback back. Any other questions? Love that. That means it was that good a presentation. Love it. Okay, well, with that, thank you so much.